Welcome to the quarantine kitchen. Today we'll be making homemade dog biscuits. I decided to make these because it's my dog's birthday this week, and baking for my dog's birthday is just sort of where I'm at right now. I decided to choose a recipe that's not only easy to make, but includes ingredients I already had at home. The recipe calls for flour, peanut butter, oats, and water. This recipe does happen to be vegan, but my dog is not. In fact, one of the most common questions I get about being vegan is whether or not I make my dog vegan. Abso-fucking-lutely not. If you're vegan, that's awesome. Don't make your animals vegan. It's cruel. Let's get started. First, mix your dry ingredients together. Usually when I bake, I like to be as precise as possible. But for this recipe, it's okay if you're a little bit off, because at the end of the day, a dog is eating it. If you're using a KitchenAid mixer, make sure to use your paddle attachment. If you're using a handheld mixer, that sucks. At this point, your dough should look like a bunch of flour mixed with a bunch of dry oats. Next, add the peanut butter. Add the water. Make sure that it's hot. Once mixed, remove the excess dough from the paddle, then switch to the bread hook to knead. At this point, if your dough seems too moist, wet, go ahead and add more flour. Your dough should resemble very boring yet chunky Play-Doh. Now it's time to shape the biscuits. First, spread a generous amount of flour onto your work surface. This could get sticky. Coat the dough evenly in the flour. The goal is to get the dough about 1/4 of an inch thick. You can try using your hands as much as possible, but eventually you will need a rolling pin. Now, I don't own a rolling pin because I'm a millennial and we didn't register for gifts when we got married. Instead, I like to use a trick that my mother taught me. I call it improvisational baking. I have no idea if that's close to 1/4 of an inch or not, but I'm gonna say good enough. Once your dough is rolled out, it's time to cut out the biscuits. You can either use a glass to make round biscuits or whatever cookie cutters you have on hand. The only cookie cutters I own are this dog bone shaped one and this fish. I'm pretty sure I meant to make these into Christmas ornaments about 4 years ago, but all in all, I'm not entirely sure why I own them. Next, grab your cookie sheets and line them with parchment paper. Remove the biscuits and place them on the cookie sheet. Once all the cookies have been placed on a baking sheet, take the scraps of dough and repeat the process. If your dog is anything like mine, you may be tempted to give her a small piece of the raw dough due to her persistent persuasion. I can't tell you what to do, but do keep in mind that raw flour does tend to carry E. coli. Finally, the recipe does have an optional egg wash that you can add to the top of the biscuits. However, I'm not going to do that because it's an awful lot of work just to make biscuits shiny for a dog. These biscuits need to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. The recipe says that the biscuits should bake for 40 minutes. In the meantime, I'll clean up my workstation and spend some quality time with the dog. She did not like that. Time to check on the biscuits. Move the biscuits to a wire cooling rack. It's important to let the biscuits cool completely before giving them to your dog, no matter how persistent she may be. There you have it. This recipe yields about 50 biscuits, and as you can see, they're adorable. Let's see how they taste. Well, to me they taste pretty awful, but luckily I'm not the intended target. Let's talk to somebody with a bit more discerning taste when it comes to biscuits. She likes it. That's all for this episode of the Quarantine Kitchen. Join us next time, or hopefully don't.